Welcome to This Week in the News here on Zodiak. This is Robert Kalua. Some of the main stories in the week ending. President Lazarus Chakwera takes the first jab of AstraZeneca vaccine and paid courtesy call to former President Bakiri Muluzi. Judiciary fires controversial senior magistrate Benedicto Jitsakamire and two others. TUM suspends teachers' strike after convinced of a once-off COVID-19 payment of presidential task force. And in sports, Nyamilandu loses FIFA council seat. Stay with us, we've got these and many more. We begin with the news that this week on Thursday, President Lazarus Chakwera commissioned a national mass COVID-19 vaccine campaign and received the jab at Zomba State Field Hospital. The president said the AstraZeneca is safe and encouraged fellow Malawians to receive the vaccine. Alex Banda witnessed the event and filed this report.
On Thursday, March 11, 2021, President Lazarus Chakwera set history rolling by becoming the first Malawian to get the AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine. Speaking to Malawians, the president said this vaccine is safe, suitable for Malawians, and effective.
No one should fool or scare Malawians with lies about this vaccine. As far as vaccines go, AstraZeneca has been found by our scientists to be safe, effective, and suitable. In fact, as a show of good faith, I and others on this platform have volunteered to be the first to be vaccinated.
Former President Dr. Joyce Banda and former First Gentleman Chief Justice Richard Banda also took their shots. Head of the Judiciary Andrew Nyirenda and Malawi Defense Force Commander General Vincent Nundwe were also among those that took the AstraZeneca jab after the president. The clergy, traditional leaders, and the heads of the foreign missions such as U.S. Ambassador to Malawi Robert Scott and UN Resident Coordinator to Malawi Maria Jose Torres urged Malawians to take their shots.
But I think the most important message is that this vaccine is also to save lives, to stop the virus.
People should not use the Bible in the wrong way. This is, the vaccine is for our good life. God cannot help us, cannot punish us by sending this coronavirus or sending the vaccine.
Social media has created a monster around the vaccine. But the vaccine itself is safe. The vaccine is like any other vaccine we've taken in the past.
Minister of Health Kumbisa Gandudujibonda, who reiterated that health workers will be prioritized in the exercise, has cautioned them against selling the doses to anyone. Malawians and the president, who took their first jab on Thursday, are expected to receive the second dose between 8 and 12 weeks. The country is expecting extra 1,400 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine under the COVAX initiative, while India and the African Union will collectively give Malawi 150 doses of the vaccine.
And a few hours later, the Vice President, Dr. Saulos Chilima, also received his COVID-19 vaccine jab in Mzuzu. We had Angela Mkandawire from Mzuzu.
Vice President Dr. Saulos Chilima said at a time of rumors and disinformation globally about the COVID-19 vaccine, it was imperative that him and the country's President, Dr. Lazarus Chakwera, to take the lead to have the vaccine so as to inspire Malawians to do the same. He said the AstraZeneca vaccine that Malawi has opted for is safe and with minimum side effects, hence Malawians should take it. He said Malawians should not listen to devil worshippers who are speaking against the vaccine. After the Vice President took his first jab, Deputy Minister of Health Chrissy Kanyasho, representatives from the World Health Organization, the faith community, the academia, health and social rights activists, politicians, all took turns to get vaccinated. Nkosimbera 5 of Mzimba shared his immediate reaction soon after being vaccinated.
After getting my jab, with the way you can see me here, there's nothing that has changed. I think there's just a lot of misinformation out there. What I can say to the people of Malawi, and especially the people of Mzimba, is to go and get vaccinated, because otherwise we've been getting these vaccines from birth. Apparently after a week or a month or so you get a vaccine just to protect you. So this is the same way of, equivalent to the same vaccines that we're getting, just to protect us.
Meanwhile, government says in the initial vaccination phase, 20% of the population, which includes 60,000 frontline health workers, social workers and the elderly, and those with underlying conditions, have been targeted. Government says through the expanded program on immunization with its partners such as World Health Organization, it has developed the National COVID-19 Vaccines Deployment Plan, which will facilitate the introduction of COVID-19 vaccines to all high-risk groups. For Zodiak, this is Angela Mkandawiri.
And on Friday, President Lazarus Chakwera paid a courtesy call to former Malawi leader Dr. Muluzi at his BCA Hill residence in Blantyre. Both State House and BCA did not disclose details of the meeting. From BCA Hill residence, Alex Banda gave us this report.
President Lazarus Chakwera, under low key, without silence and all the pomp that the president travels with, was at the BCA Hill. This is the residence of former President Dr. Muluzi. This was an unscheduled trip to the BCA Hills, where the president was meeting the former leader. We are not quite sure what the details of this meeting was, but on Thursday it was mentioned that the State House and the Minister of Health had extended an invitation to the former leader to attend or to take part in the vaccination exercise for the COVID-19 AstraZeneca vaccine. But the former Malawi leader, Dr. Muluzi, was in no show. Apparently, this trip to the BCA by President Lazarus Chakwera is probably maybe a sign, ask the former leader to take part in show of solidarity. But we are not very quite sure of what transpired, as the State House Press Office was reluctant to divulge any information given the nature of this meeting. We're also trying to reach out to the former leader, Dr. Muluzi. He has not been available to comment as of now.
On Monday, March 8th, Malawi joined the world in celebrating the International Women's Day. And during a cocktail to celebrate the International Women's Day on Thursday, European Union, United Nations, other diplomatic missions in Malawi observed that Malawi media landscape continues to disadvantage women, as most institutions are still thin in trusting women in decision-making positions. The international organizations observe that this is negatively affecting effective coverage of women's issues in the society to advance national development.
A recent study conducted by the Gender Links in collaboration with the Gender and Media Southern Africa Network and the Gender and Media Diversity Center of South Africa found that Malawi has very few female practitioners in the media industry. The study revealed that women constitute 41% of employees in media houses, a figure which is the lowest in the African region, as compared to 59% of men. The figures, according to international organizations such as EU and UN, create limited opportunities for women voices on matters that often affect them, especially this time when gender-based violence issues are rampant. UN Women Representative Clara Anyangwe said the current media landscape is disadvantaging the few female media practitioners to speak out by writing stories on women and girls that reflect their experiences in the workplace.
We need to ensure that we have many more women at the decision-making level. It is very critical. And as the United Nations and working in close collaboration with the EU within the framework of the Spotlight Initiative, we really have to delve deeper into this issue of the leadership, that is the female media, the women in media, to see how we can work with the decision makers within the media houses. We talked about quota. The quota thing should not only apply at the level of parliament or councils, but also within your space. So we need a lot of lobbying at the advocacy to see how we can look at the quota system. Why not? Even within the area of work.
EU Chargé d'Affaires for Malawi, Oreri Vatal, says with the gaps on gender-based violence in media institutions, her organization is planning to conduct a new research on how best women in media can be supported.
Well, we've had conversation where we've identified that there is a gap in data on the women leadership positions in media. So this is an area that we'd like to work with other partners at actually getting the data. So what's the percentage of women in leadership positions in Malawian media, including local radio station, community radio stations, because we tend to focus only on the urban centers, but it's very important that we also know what's going on in the rural areas. So EU will be interested to work with partners on this and to provide some data so that we can take the next steps.
Meanwhile, Mr. Malawi chairperson Teresa Ndanga commended the concept the international organizations used of bringing some female practitioners together for an interaction and discussion on issues affecting their profession.
This particular meeting has been very important because the female journalists have been able to have a conversation with female heads of international organizations or indeed embassies. This will especially help us out to look at the areas that we need to focus more in terms of gender-based violence, and it's more specifically what the challenges the women and girls are facing, especially that is to do with their gender. And on the other end, our colleagues look at the solutions that they can provide. And therefore there is a need that we continue with this particular conversation to see where our two sides can meet to be able to provide a long-lasting solution to the challenges that women and girls are facing in the country.
The female media practitioners' interaction with female heads of diplomatic missions Thursday evening in Lilongwe was part of this year's activities to mark International Women's Day. For Zodiak in Lilongwe, this is Jacqueline Shema reporting.
This week ending, Parliament passed the revised 2020-2021 national budget, paged at 2.3 trillion kwacha. Finance Minister Felix Mulusu admitted that he has a tough task to get the economy moving again following the effects of COVID-19. Earlier in the House, deliberations were adjourned for half an hour to allow lawmakers enter into a division vote on an allocation to the Ministry of Local Government. The disagreement arose after opposition MPs shot down the initial allocation of 4 billion kwacha to the ministry, demanding that it be increased to 4.1 billion. From Parliament Building, Mibawa sent us this report.
On Thursday, members of Parliament passed the revised 2.3 trillion kwacha budget. The budget was revised upwards from 2.1 trillion kwacha when Finance Minister Felix Mulusu presented it in the House a few weeks ago. Legislators took turns quizzing Minister of Finance on some votes such as that under the Ministry of Forestry and Natural Resources. One of the MPs for Zomba Central constituency, Besta Awali, wondered why allocation to the ministry has been revised downwards. But Minister of Finance Felix Mulusu responded to some of these concerns, saying they will be looked into in the 2021-2022 national budget.
We allow business people or businesses to export the maize plus other produce. And we believe that, with that, that should also assist us to start, revitalizing the economy on its way on recovery. So these are some of the measures that we believe will bring us some of the revenues that will be able to run, our programs up to the end of the year, and indeed, as we go into our next financial year.
Parliamentary Committee on Finance Chairperson Gladys Ganda said the budget will go a long way in catering for the needs of Malawians.
The deliberations have been fair in the sense that both sides of the House were able to deliberate and also put their input. It's just unfortunate that, to say the truth, what happened to send out one of the members from the opposite side was unnecessary.
Ministries that have suffered cuts in the mid-year budget include Ministry of Forestry and Natural Resources, Ministry of Mining, the Law Commission, while allocations in other ministries have been maintained while others have increased. This is Chimwemwe Padata from Parliament in Lilongwe.
Away from budget in the week, the Judicial Service Commission fired 2 magistrates, including Zomba Senior Resident Magistrate Benedicto Jitsakamile, for unethical discharge of judicial functions. Judicial Registrar Gladys Gondwe, however, did not divulge more details on the dismissal of Jitsakamile. Jitsakamile came on the spotlight last year when he cancelled a High Court warrant to arrest business magnate Dr. Thompson Mpinganjira in questionable circumstances. John Pokayuni was on the story.
It all started with lawyer Lusungu Gondwe representing Dr. Thompson Mpinganjira, who traveled all the way from Blantyre at night to secure a court order in Zomba. In his late-night ruling, Senior Resident Magistrate Benedicto Jitsakamile trashed the basis on which the Anti-Corruption Bureau, ACB, arrested Mpinganjira and subsequently cancelled his arrest warrant issued by another magistrate. His action raised more legal questions on whether a magistrate can overrule another magistrate order. When the matter was taken to the High Court, Judge Dorothy Nyakaunda Kamanga ordered that the magistrate be disciplined. After the disciplinary hearing, the Judicial Service Commission has resorted to relieve the magistrate of his duties. Judiciary Registrar Gladys Gondwe confirmed Chisakamile's dismissal but could not be drawn to divulge more details. However, Zodiak understands that Chisakamile has been dismissed on grounds of objectionable conduct in discharge of judicial functions and unethical conduct in connection to the Mpinganjira case. Apart from Magistrate Chisakamile, the Judicial Service Commission has also dismissed Magistrate Trustgood Mkandavire of Edingeni Magistrate Court for objectionable conduct in discharge of judicial duties, unethical conduct, and absenteeism. Another magistrate, Cecilia Malemia, has been sent on forced retirement for misappropriating money. For Zodiac, this is John Paul Kayuni.
You're watching This Week in the News on Zodiac. We still have more to come. Stay with us.
If there's one thing that all soaps do, it's wash. From buckets to basins, bathrooms to streams, and everything in between.
All soaps wash.
Yes, but Protex is different. Its reinvented formula with flaxseed oil boosts your skin's natural anti-germ defenses by 10 times more, protecting you against 99.9% of germs. So what keeps us healthy?
Protex!
Good health starts here.
Do you know, here at Lilongwe Water Board, we have in place a 24-hour call center just for you, our customers. Anytime you experience a water problem, don't hesitate to call us on 253 and it's free. Low water pressure, no water situation, billing queries, bill payment, pipe burst, pipe leaks, faults, tips, and illegal connections. Just dial 253 and we will assist you.
Welcome back. Let's have a look at the headlines as we continue. President Lazarus Chakwera takes the first jab of AstraZeneca vaccine and paid courtesy call to former President Bakili Muluzi on Friday. Judiciary fires controversial senior magistrate Benedicto Jitsakamire and two others. TUM suspends teacher strike after convinced of a once-off COVID-19 payment of presidential task force. And in sports, Nyamilandu loses FIFA council seat. Moving on with the news, on Monday this week, Teachers Union of Malawi suspended a 3-week teacher strike they have been conducting countrywide after government promised that it will start giving them a once-off payment to help them acquire PPEs. The decision was arrived at after a joint parliamentary committee on education and social affairs summoned TUM and Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 members for mediation talks on the COVID-19 risk allowance stalemate. Chimome Badata filed this report.
It is now a done deal. The Teachers Union of Malawi and Ministry of Education has agreed to suspend a teachers' strike that lasted for 3 weeks. In the agreement, Ministry of Education has made a commitment teachers will now get money in place of personal protective equipment, PPEs. The teachers were demanding COVID-19 risk allowance for being on the line amid the COVID-19 pandemic. TUM has held several meetings with Ministry of Education, but nothing seems to have worked out. All 4 meetings ended in a deadlock, forcing the intervention of a joint parliamentary committee on education, science and technology and community affairs to mediate. Brains Kaisi is a co-chairperson of the joint parliamentary committee.
Not only this issue of what we have agreed today, we will even again follow up with the other issues that they signed before. It is our mandate as a committee to make sure that what has been signed today, it is being implemented. The resolutions that have been made today, they are implemented.
A member of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, Innocencia Chirombo, said the two parties now await the task force to decide the monetary value the teachers are to receive.
They need to do the calculations. That's where the education department has to do all the calculations and bring it to the task force.
But TUM President Wire Malimba says the union has given 2 weeks to the task force to come out clear on their commitment.
No. We'll be going back to on street. That's why we have said that we are suspending the strike. We are suspending, not calling off. You remember the first document was written calling off the strike. But we said, no, this is a commitment document. Then we are saying we are suspending. When you fail to do what we have agreed here, we'll be going back on street.
A lengthy dragging of the impasse paralyzed education in government schools, but now teachers are expected in class come Tuesday, 9th March. From Parliament in Lilongwe, I am Chimwemwe Badata.
In business and economy, the Malawi Energy Regulatory Authority MERA on Monday increased pump price for fuel. According to MERA, petrol will now be selling at 899 kwacha, up from 834 kwacha, representing 7.34% increase, while diesel has gone up from 826 kwacha to 898 kwacha, representing 8.66% increase. Paraffin was adjusted from 613 kwacha to 719 kwacha, representing a 17.35% increase. MERA spokesperson Fitina Konje attributed the hike to depreciation of the Malawi kwacha and its impact on energy prices on the global market. Andrew Viano had this story.
MERA spokesperson Fitina Konje announced that the body has adjusted upwards prices of fuel and other petroleum products due to 2 factors that he said: depreciation of kwacha by about 1% and changes in petroleum products internationally. She said that prices of petroleum products internationally have gone up, and that has been reflected on the fuel hikes. So effective midnight, petrol will be sold at 899 kwacha from 834 kwacha. Diesel will be sold at 898 kwacha from 826 kwacha, while paraffin will be sold at 719 kwacha from 613 kwacha. And gas will be sold at 1,952 kwacha from 1,880 kwacha. She said that this has been decided after considering that the price stabilization fund that was established to cushion incidences like this of fuel hikes have been factored in, and that is what led to maintaining of the prices in February. You remember that in February, the prices for petroleum products were maintained. There was no change of prices, and that, according to her, is because of the price stabilization fund that was established.
On Friday in Parliament, government announced that it has notified a financial repayment to the DPP government made with Modi Brothers to repay public resources that the company had when the 11.9 billion kwacha liquidation of the Malawi Savings Bank was made. According to Minister of Finance Felix Moluso, out of 13 defaulters, Modi Brothers alone held 10.5 billion kwacha, while the rest held only 1.8 billion kwacha. We had a report which was filed by Western Guta.
In 2015, government sold the public Malawi Savings Bank MSB to FDH Bank, with some local companies owing the bank huge amounts in loans. One such company is Modi Brothers, which defaulted in the excess of 10.05 billion kwacha out of 13 defaulters which shared 1.08 billion kwacha. Responding to Lilongwe South Legislator Peter Dimba's request to know progress on recovery of loans from the time the bank was being sold, Finance Minister Felix Moluso said Modi Brothers' loan has now accumulated to 10.5 billion kwacha, which, according to the agreement the company signed with the present past Democratic Progressive Party government, the loan was to be paid in 5 million kwacha amounts, translating into 107-year period. Moluso said efforts to recover the loans failed because of lack of political will and government interference, of which saw what Dimba described as a daylight robbery agreement. He further said despite the constitution of a committee to collect the funds, the then government acted without consulting the committee. For all this, and especially considering the 107-year period that Modi Brothers was to repay the loan according to the agreement that was signed on the run-up to the June 2020 election, Government has nullified the agreement and will now engage and find a better solution of repayment. Reporting for Zodiak from Parliament Building, this is Western Guta.
Let's now move on to sports. Farm President Walter Nyamilandu on Friday evening failed in his bid to retain the FIFA Council seat after losing to Nigeria's Amaju Pinnick. During CAF elections held in Rabat, Morocco, Nyamilandu lost by 43 votes to 8. Pinnick is the president of the Nigerian Football Association. The two contested the Anglophone bloc slot after 4 other hopefuls withdrew from the race. Sambanda was on this story.
Despite the 11th hour withdrawal of Zambia's Andrew Kamanga, Gambian Lamini Baba Bajo, Kenyan Nicholas Mwendwa, and Tanzania's FA President Wallace Karia, Nyamilandu, who was first elected in 2017, found it hard to convince the delegates in Rabat to give him another 4-year mandate, as they instead opted for Nigeria's Football Federation leader, Amaju Mervyn Pinnick, who has won the race for the Anglophone slot in the FIFA Council with a landslide victory. Pinnick, who reportedly garnered support from COSAFA, pulled an overwhelming 43 votes against 8 for Nyamilandu, who floored 2010 World Cup Local Organizing Committee chairperson and incumbent South African Football Association President Dr. Danny Jordan. Football analyst George Kaudzamasina, who earlier predicted a tough race for the farm president, is not surprised with the result.
The writing was already on the wall that it would take a miracle for Walter Nyamilandu to retain his FIFA seat. When you're going for these elections, you should be crafty to make sure that you already know who are going to vote for you. And it was already clear Walter was not a favored candidate. Walter and his crew made a very big mistake by not involving government in these elections. Government in these elections, they do play a leading role to lobby other sports ministers for your candidate. But what they did was a one-man band, so we are not surprised.
Meanwhile, South African mining business magnate Patrice Motsepe, who also owns the Rainbow Nations Premier Soccer League champions Mamelodi Sundowns, has been elected the new Confederation of African Football CAF president, succeeding Ahmad Ahmad, who was restricted from contesting as he serves a 2-year ban.
That's all we had time for in this week in the news. A reminder of some of the top stories before we leave. President Lazarus Chakwera takes the first jab of AstraZeneca vaccine and paid courtesy call to former President Bakiri Muluzi. Judiciary finds controversial senior magistrate Benedicto Jitsakamire and 2 others. TUM suspends teacher strike after convinced of a once-off COVID-19 payment by Presidential Task Force. And in sports, Nyamilandu loses FIFA Council seat. For more news, visit our website, zodiacmalawi.com. Remember to stay safe by observing all COVID-19 preventive measures to contain its spread. My name is Robert Karua.
Let's take a moment to talk about money. Life can get a little pricey out there. The passing pleasure of a restaurant meal, a fleeting fast food feast, or those sports magazines you never